Business owners, executives, and entrepreneurs, get your pen and paper ready and tune in Sundays at 1 p.m. for Evolution Strategies, Business Sustainability and Growth Simplified. You must evolve to meet the challenges of today's marketplace. This is the only show in the Philly metro area that walks you step by step through success factors that make or break your brand. Want some free advice? Call in Sundays at 1 p.m. to talk to your host, Carolyn Lighty, and a panel of experts for Evolution Strategies, Business Sustainability and Growth Simplified.
Good afternoon, and welcome to this edition of Evolution Strategies. I'm Carolyn Lighty, your host. Have you ever considered the personal challenges, the highs and lows, and yes, the potential for success or failure when it comes to being an entrepreneur? Have you ever really wondered what it takes to be an entrepreneur? 80% of entrepreneurs are between the ages of 18 and 34. But as I mentioned last week when I paraphrased a quote from Greek philosopher Plato, necessity is the mother of invention. That applies also to the fact that there are over 11 million adults in the U.S. that are unemployed, and according to a recent Career Builder survey, 26% of them plan to start their own businesses rather than going back to work for someone else. Further, a recent AARP survey found that that entrepreneurs aged 55 to 64, that particular group is up over 23% in terms of those that are actually starting their own businesses. And 1/4 of the self-employed are actually 60 years of age or older. So entrepreneurship is still a very much high-level dream for many people, but a lot of people just don't know how to get started. Most businesses start with a compelling idea, but it's really what you do with the idea that counts. Global Startup Battle is back this year to bring the global entrepreneur community together from hundreds of cities around the world for a competitive week of collaboration and learning. Participating entrepreneurs have an opportunity to compete for over $500,000 in prizes, and they'll receive tons of exposure as a result of their participation in the events and activities. Joining me today to talk about Global Startup Battle, what it is, and how you yourself may participate is a friend to the show. She was on our show a couple of weeks ago, Mona Parikh. She's Managing Director from Startup Delaware. Good morning. Good afternoon, Mona.
Good afternoon, Carolyn. Thanks for having me back again.
Absolutely. Well, this is something really interesting. You brought this to my attention. I had never heard of it before. And when you told me about it, I thought, wow, what a great opportunity for our entrepreneurs to learn. Even if you don't win, it seems to me that there is some benefit to participating in this type of an event. Would you agree?
Absolutely. I mean, it's a really great way to see, in 54 hours, over the course of one weekend, what a team is capable of building if all hands are on deck and all your focus is just on one project.
So tell us a little bit about it. It's been around for about 4 years, right?
That's correct.
So kind of walk us through exactly what the Global Startup Battle is all about, where it came from, in terms of how it fits in with the other activities of what is it, Startup Weekend?
Startup Weekend, that's correct. So Startup Weekend is actually a nonprofit. They're a 501c3, and they were fueled by a grant from the Kauffman Foundation. And basically, startup weekends have been happening all over the world and all over many different cities. And essentially, it's a 54-hour weekend where you come in, you pitch an idea, people will vote on the most popular ideas, and then those ideas end up getting worked on throughout the weekend. And then Sunday, it sort of pencils down, and then there's a demo presentation, so each team gets to showcase what it was able to put together, and then there's a judging and a winner is selected. So the idea with the global aspect was, I guess what Startup Weekend thought was let's make this a global weekend of innovation. Mm-hmm. So simultaneously in 200 plus cities all over the world, there's also going to be all similar events.
Types
exactly.
Okay.
And then what they want to do, the global part of it, or what makes it a global battle, is that the winners from each cities will then go on into virtual competitions against one another until a final winner is selected.
That's interesting because you're saying virtual. I wasn't sure. I was going to ask whether or not, is it everyone's flying to Las Vegas or somewhere where
right. I wasn't 100% sure myself. And then I was like, how are they actually going to do this? But no, the competitions are going to take place, my guess is over Google Hangouts or something like that. And then, there's over $500,000 in cash and prizes that the entrepreneurs and the teams are going to be competing for. They've got some really big sponsors behind this, like Google for Entrepreneurs, Amazon Web Services.
I saw Amazon was one of the other.
Coca-Cola, right?
Yeah. So that's really good. So there's a lot of heavy hitters behind it,
yes.
Which says that there is an indication from their standpoint that the importance of entrepreneurship in terms of the business economy overall. They are the big guys, but they understand the importance of seeding and helping the younger entrepreneur in terms of the impact that has on overall economy for the country. You would agree?
Oh, absolutely.
So now, on a local level, and I'm trying to walk through it because we got a lot of virtual stuff going on. So we start out, we register online.
Right.
So here locally in Delaware, you're the lead organizer.
That's correct.
Correct. And you have other people working with you as organizers. Who would those be?
We have a team of about 8 people in Delaware who are helping me. I call them my local army of tech organizers who are helping me put this together. And really, what we're trying to do is spread the word to see if we can secure some sponsorship, obviously. But the most important thing that we are trying to do is to get participants in the room. The stronger the level of talent of our participants, the stronger the demos are going to be. Okay. And by that, I mean this, can any person, if you don't have a technical background, can you participate in this?
That's one of my questions.
Yeah. And the answer is absolutely. We try to have about 30% of non-technical attendees in the room, 30% who know how to build more, doing the coding and the programming for a website, and then 30% who do the design and, kind of like the front end sort of work for an app. But a great example for a non-technical idea that came out of Startup Weekend was, I guess it was maybe it was about a year ago, there was a startup weekend that took place, I want to say somewhere in the Midwest, I believe. I might be mistaken on that. But it was a 6-year-old boy who had an idea for what he said there was a problem. He said his mom would go to all these conferences and wear those "Hello, my name is" stickers and put them on her blouse. And he said sometimes she would forget to take the sticker off and she would put it in the laundry, and then the shirt would come out ruined. So he had an idea for something called wash-off stickers. And so he said, with a little bit of water, it would dissolve. And then, he went on to say, and another application could be fruit, like the sticker on your...
absolutely.
So, all of a sudden, you're going, wow, like this kid is... he really nailed it, a pain point just for something practical like a sticker. But then, he's taking that idea and he's going, what other, applications can come of this?
That is wonderful. Just to think. So then there you go. You have a child the age of 6.
Correct.
6 to 60, or
right. Exactly.
Or 96.
More than that.
In terms of participation, because we all have ideas. How many times have you sat and thought, even as a younger person, invention, it's just something that, and you think about how much is being done with invention in terms of people moving forward and actually pursuing them. But everyone comes up with ideas every day.
Sure.
This is an opportunity to bring those ideas, the best ones, the good ones, together, and have a team that's going to work with you and mentor you in some cases, because you're going to learn things that you don't know about how to bring it around.
Yeah, and the most popular ideas, so say, for example, we have 50 people in the room that night, which is about the same number we had when we did this back in May. When we held our, Delaware second startup weekend. Out of those 50, there were about 20 people who actually pitched ideas. And out of those 20 ideas, only about 8 or 9 were selected as the projects that were going to be worked on for the whole weekend. Now, part of what happens on Saturday is you have to validate this idea. So it's not just all about you're the only person in the room who thinks your idea is great, and it's just a team of you, in a vacuum. Part of the process is actually going through the business model canvas and talking a little to potential customers if you can. So you actually get outside of the building and you talk to people and you find out, what are your pain points, and, does this idea would it have any value to you? Would you eventually be somebody who might purchase something like this?
So you're condensing that whole startup life cycle
into
54 hours.
Right.
So it's from soup to nuts. It's not just, as you're saying, sitting around the table, coming up with an idea, everybody brainstorm on it. Now let's make a presentation. You're actually doing some actual field testing and research and all of that.
It's like a tiny cross section into the whole startup process.
That's great. So last year, it was done this year in May? In May? Okay. So, and it's usually once a year, or how often does it take place?
So my goal, as also managing director of Startup Delaware, is to hold at least 2 of these per year. It takes a lot of effort and planning, to actually launch one of these events because, again, finding 50 people who actually want to commit and sacrifice their whole weekend it's asking a lot, and we realize that. But in exchange, you're really getting a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to actually test out and see if this business idea that you've had sitting around in your head for weeks, maybe sometimes years, is actually a viable one. So we think that the trade-off and the upshot is really big, and it's very much worth it to sacrifice those 54 hours and just come join us and see how far you can get.
Well, also joining us to talk about Global Startup Battle is one of the participants that were at the May event. Okay. We have two guests here, but we're going to start first with Adam Cofield. He's e-marketing specialist for DuPont Hospitality. Good afternoon, Adam, and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. How are you today?
Excellent, excellent. Tell everyone a little bit about yourself, Adam.
So I'm the e-marketing specialist for DuPont. I've actually been involved with the Coin Loft prior to Startup Delaware. The Coin Loft actually's first location was actually on, I believe it was 9th and West Street. And before I started my role in marketing with DuPont, a colleague of mine actually sent me an invite to one of the events they were hosting, and it was pertaining to marketing. And so I went, and I guess the rest was history. I was sold.
You were hooked at that point.
Exactly.
It's a wonderful resource. You were on the last time talking about it, and you had
Zach,
right. And someone else,
and Brad Watson.
And, yeah,
yes.
they were so funny.
They're great.
They're great people. But a wonderful resource that I'd like to see more people take advantage of, because you have an awful lot of different types of businesses in there that can provide services to our community, our business community. So that's something that I am definitely a big supporter of. So you as well, Adam, went in there and thought, wow, this is a great group of people. Let me get more involved with them. And in your role over at DuPont Hospitality, what are you basically charged with?
I'm charged with all the electronic marketing for our hospitality properties. So the Hotel DuPont Theater, and DuPont Country Club. I manage all other websites, social media, search engine marketing, anything from a digital component. That's my responsibilities.
And just an aside, as far as hospitality, are you seeing a trend towards more and more in that industry using digital technology? Absolutely.
The way that things are, traditional marketing, specific with print advertising, is becoming passé, so to say. And definitely all businesses, not only large corporations, but also small businesses, are getting more engaged with digital marketing, with either like search engine optimization and marketing initiatives, and particularly social media.
So in your role or your participation in Global Startup Battle in May, was that the role that you played on the team that you served on?
So I would be considered a non-technical participant, as Mona had indicated.
Okay.
I've taken design classes before, but I'm not too confident in my skills in order to kind of get in a room with 50 other people and say, yes, yeah, let's take this logo and this website layout and go with it. So okay. I'm more of a non-technical, again, marketing being my background.
And so what did you take away from that event? What did you leave with in terms of a key takeaway?
It's a total incredible weekend. Like Mona had said, 54 hours with a group of very, very talented individuals that you may have never met before, but you break down into groups, with people with different backgrounds and expertise, and you really do something to make a change, and it's usually something positive that would affect the lives of a lot of people. When I went first going into it, I was a little scared, I must admit. 54 hours, straight, having to get off from your normal 9-to-5 job, and then spend all the Friday, all the Saturday, all the Sunday working on this project.
No contact with the outside world?
No contact, really. But, in the grand scheme of things, it turned out being the most rewarding experience that I've ever had, working with, both friends that I have now and new friends as well, and working towards a common goal. And there's really no time for you to goof around. It's, heads down and working the entire time.
What was the concept or idea that your team was working on?
The concept that we worked on was an application called What's Around. So it was a mobile application where it would populate local events going on in your area based off of your geographic location. So you can open up your iPhone and say, this is where I'm at, and it would populate, based off of, distances, what events were going on in your immediate area.
Very good. And so did you go into a competitive analysis, kind of the needs analysis is kind of done because there are companies obviously out there doing it, but from a competitive analysis, were you looking at local providers of something similar? Did it get that deep in terms of what you were able to determine before pitching the product?
So part of the validation process was going out and talking to folks and saying, how do you hear about things going on in your area? And a lot of folks would resort to, the Spark newspaper that the News Journal used to put out. Unfortunately, that's not a medium of communication that's no longer there, so I think that there's a void that needs to be filled. But definitely reaching out to folks, say, how do you hear about information in order to really justify, is this an application that would be viable and would it be useful to folks that are trying to find out what's going on in Wilmington?
Mm-hmm. So would you say then, because you're talking about it being, a product or service that was related to filling a void, is it important as an entrepreneur, and anybody can chime in on this, to find something, to create something new, or, should you... competition. A lot of people are afraid of competition. So does it have to be a completely new product, or can it just be a better mousetrap?
I mean, there's different, value propositions, if the technical term. There's different ways to introduce an idea to the market. And some ideas, they are completely new. It's never been done before, and there's a huge opportunity there. But other products, you're really focusing on innovation. You're making it quicker. You're making it simpler. You're making it faster. Mm-hmm. So to the extent that, what your unique idea provides some sort of value mm-hmm. to a particular customer segment, I think it doesn't really matter whether there's no market for it before, it's never been done before, or whether you can go ahead and innovate in an existing market. So
basically, it's how well you can develop that product and target your market, and therefore, of course, be able to sell it.
Exactly.
Identifying the price points and all of that.
At the end of the day, it can be as great as you want, but if no one's going to buy it, then it may not really matter. Now, I will say this thing. It comes, the other side of the argument is there are just some apps that help social good, and it doesn't really matter whether you're making money off of it, because it really makes the world a better place. Okay. But that's the value.
Yeah.
That's the value.
There's still a value. Yeah. There's still a value there. That's a really good point. So what I'm going to do is we're going to take a really quick break, and then we're going to come back with another of our guests who participated in the Global Startup Battle back in May. So stay tuned, and we'll be back shortly.
You can't. Do those magic words motivate you? Has anyone ever told you that you can't? You can't be an entrepreneur. You can't be a business owner. You don't have what it takes. How many successful businesses started without incorporating? I'm John Williams, the president of Inc. Now. For 39 years, Inc. Now has been incorporating first-time entrepreneurs just like you. Over 15,000 companies, from mom and pop businesses to worldwide enterprises. IncNow.com, based in Delaware, can have you incorporated in only a few minutes for $298. Inc. Now makes starting your LLC easy. Learn more about what Inc. Now can do for you. On the web, visit incnow.com. That's incnow.com. What do you have to lose? If you think you can't be an entrepreneur, then don't. I'm here to tell you, you can. Plant a seed. Inc. Now. Dreamers wanted.
And we're back. Thank you very much for tuning in. This is Carolyn Lighty, and you're listening to Evolution Strategies. We are joined today with several wonderful guests to talk about the Global Startup Battle, which is part of the Startup Weekend that takes place in November. I'm not sure the dates. Mona, can you tell me those dates again?
Sure. The dates are November 11th through the 17th, so it starts on a Friday evening at about 4 o'clock. Our registration opens. And then right around 5:45, we're going to start to get things going. We just found out a couple of days ago that Governor Markell is actually going to be helping us kick things off on Friday evening. He's going to reach there close to 6 o'clock. So
very good.
We're really
Congratulations.
excited. Thank
That's
you so
really
much.
Good. That shows the importance. Again, if all the stakeholders realize how important, supporting our entrepreneurs in any endeavor that's designed to help them come together and actually be able to start businesses, or at least to begin the dialogue that leads to starting new businesses, is going to help us all.
Absolutely. And the Delaware Economic Development Office has been, our biggest champion for what we're trying to do with Starting Up Delaware.
Diane Laird.
Exactly. Patricia Cannon, Alan Levin, Governor Markell himself. So, we're just super lucky and very fortunate to have them really be champions of our mission and our cause.
That's terrific. We're joined with another gentleman who also participated in the Global Startup Battle back in May. His name is Steve High. He's a developer with the Archer Group. The Archer Group is an award-winning design, marketing, and technology agency. And I think, Steve, you're basically on the technology side. Is that correct?
That's correct. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. So tell us a little bit about you. How did you come to get involved with this particular event and the business community? Mona is around everywhere. Everybody knows Mona. Whenever I run into someone, they say, "Oh, you had Mona on your show." So yes, Mona, I'm going to keep you on the show because that seems to be a good thing for people out there.
Well, I'm happy to come back.
Absolutely. So Steve, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm a software developer with the Archer Group. I've been down there for now 6 years now. I'm originally from Lancaster, PA, so I've commuted down here for a while. Last year, though, I decided to move down here and become more active with the community down here. And
well, we're glad to have you down here.
Thank you. I got involved with the first startup weekend I did, which was, I'm going to guess, about 2 years ago now. Mm-hmm. It was a startup Delaware at the University of Delaware. And I got involved with that through Lee Michaels, who's one of the founders of the Archer Group. He showed me about the startup weekend. I was like, well, what's this thing? What is it about? And one thing led to another, and I ended up spending 54 hours writing a couple websites and some mobile apps. So anyway, we did a startup weekend down at the University of Delaware back in 2011, and I really, really enjoyed it. It was essentially, for me, I'm not necessarily, my motivation for these things necessarily isn't obviously being an entrepreneur so much as is just taking on a big challenge like that. 54 hours, you have to produce something tangible that may or may not, lead to something successful down the line. Mm-hmm. To me, the pressure of that is what attracts me to these things, and continues to do so.
I understand you're also an instructor over at the Coin Loft.
I am, yes, I do. I teach right now. I teach a PHP programming class, which is a web a language. I'm planning on expanding that to a few other languages, and also reaching out to kids here in the city of Wilmington to teach them some basic.
That's very good. That's very, very good. I was involved in Tampa with a nonprofit called Computer Mentors, and this gentleman started, kind of in his home, and then gradually grew into some office space, and was able to really make a tremendous impact on some of the disadvantaged kids in the various neighborhoods, and bringing them in, teaching them actually how to tear down the computers and put them back together, and then they were theirs to take after they completed the course.
That's awesome.
So that's kind of a cool thing. But I think that reaching out to our children is really important, because as a community, the more technology based we are, because that's the way of the world. I mean, everything is going from desktop now to mobile. So even learning those technologies has got to be another whole group of people that we need to help us train our children, our professionals, and all of that. Because
absolutely,
Well,
so
one thing that Steve and I talked about when we were designing the curriculum for his last course at the Coin Loft was, and it's something that's echoed a lot by one of my friends and mentors who co-founded Code Academy, is solving meaningful problems through technology. Mm-hmm. If tech is the language of problem solving these days, then the younger, you can start someone on that path, the better. But no matter what age you are, and no matter what your background is, it's something that can be learned.
Yeah. No, that's really good. With Steve, so your particular role on your team was a more technology oriented
role? I was on the same team as Adam. So I basically did the grunt work of developing we did an iPhone app and a really kind of thrown together website. I mean, it's very relative, obviously, because you have 54 hours. So essentially, at the end of the day, you end up creating this dog and pony show.
I bet your website was better than a lot of the ones.
Yeah, when Steve says thrown together.
When you're saying thrown together, I'm looking at you saying, I'm sure.
Actually, it was pretty impressive.
But we ended up making, it. So my role there was the technical end of things, and having done two of these previously, I've kind of know what to expect in terms of the timeline and in terms of what we should focus on versus what we should kind of ignore for the end of the presentation and whatnot.
So were people really engaged? I mean, when you have a big room of 50 people, there's usually a core group that's really excited and aggressive and loudest and what have you. Mm. Did you have other people that were kind of sitting along the edge or along the fringe, and you had to bring them in?
Right. That's the interesting part. I've done several of these kinds of hack weekends before, and I am not saying this just because I love Delaware and I love our community so much, but the startup weekend that happened in May was hands down the most productive group of people I have ever witnessed.
Wow.
And, we sort of knew what we were doing with the chemistry and the way we organized the event. Like what I mentioned before about having the equal balance of the 1/3 non-technical, 1/3 technical, and 1/3 design helps teams have an equal balance of people. So you're not left with a team that's all idea people with nobody who knows how to build a website. An equal balance team leads to a stronger prototype because you have the right balance. You have all the ingredients you need to build something. The other part was, I don't think this has been mentioned yet, but we actually feed you all 7 meals. So,
oh wow,
that's actually extremely important.
So it's okay if you're held captive because at least you're being
because
fed.
we're taking care of you, right? And last year, in May, we actually had homegrown from Newark Cater, and so we had like really good, healthy food, and so people, from dinner on Friday all the way to dinner on Sunday, we just kept feeding them good food. And so in Wilmington, also where we are at 6th and Market, it was also a concern because we didn't want people to have to go out and stray and look for things and waste time and all that. So we tried to make it like an all-inclusive hack.
It could have almost been a Club Med.
Exactly. Just missing sand and a nice palm trees and everything. But no, that was I'm not saying the food was the only reason, but I think the more comfortable you make it for your participants, the more likely it is that they're just going to put their heads on and do work. So last time we tested it, and boy, I remember looking up a few times and thinking it's as quiet as a library in here. You guys can attest to that. It was just like productive.
Everybody was very serious.
And everyone was focused. That is fantastic.
Yeah.
So when I think about how you've determined the 1/3 non-technical, 1/3 technical, and then the creative, were there also differing levels of experience? And, were you working with mostly entrepreneurs or want to be entrepreneurs? Did you have kind of mentors that could be there also to help the process, or was that purposely something that was not?
So what we do is, I think that the key with the coaches and the mentors is we don't want them there, with all due respect to our very awesome coaches. We really don't want them there the whole time.
Right.
Because it gets really easy, to get into a conversation about the business model and, have all these theories and ideas about what the website could do. But the point is you only have 54 hours.
Yes.
So you've just got to get down and do work. So what we do is we invite the coaches to come in at 2 o'clock on Saturday and then again at 12:30 on Sunday. And the coaches are really only there for about an hour or two to kind of see if there's a team, where your direction is, or if there's a team that's kind of going in the wrong direction, they're there to sort of steer them back. And the coaches are not just business people. Some of the coaches we bring in have, technical skills. So if there's a team that, maybe they're not as well balanced as what we wanted.
Okay.
Maybe all the idea people went to one team because they really like this idea and they don't have that person who knows how to do a logo. So we have coaches who know how to do that so they can come in and kind of pinch hit for what that team really needs.
That sounds cool, though. So just walk me through. So I come to the event. I register online.
Right. You register online.
And where would that be? You can give us that information.
Sure. It's delaware.startupweekend.org. And so you register, and then we start on Friday night on November 15th with an open mic 60-second elevator pitch.
So I need to come prepared with an idea already?
Yeah. Bring us your best idea pitch in 60 seconds. And then basically, after people pitch, the most popular ideas, I guess you could say, get voted on.
And who's voting?
Everyone in the room.
Everyone in the room.
But only the attendees, not the public. So the public, this really isn't open to the public because, we don't really want, pitching is kind of like a nerve-wracking experience anyways. So we don't want to make it like an audience. People are sitting there with popcorn watching you get up there and get nervous and give your spiel. We really try to make it, the focus is all about the attendees.
Okay.
They're the stars of the show here. That's, we're doing this for one purpose, and that's to have something really strong on Sunday. So we watch them pitch on Sunday. Everyone pitches, and then the ideas get voted on. And then that night, the teams will start to form. They'll start talking about a strategy, maybe. And then, around 10 or 11 o'clock at night, we do encourage people to go home. Now, we're not going to kick you out. And that's not to say that, we don't mind if you actually do take this. We work the whole 54 hours.
Yeah.
But I have been to hack weekends where that's the case.
Wow.
And trust me, by Sunday, it gets very smelly.
You keep supplying the
and
coffee.
Gross. Yeah, it's just not.
A steady flow.
As the lead organizer, I encourage people to go home, sleep, and shower. That's it's like an unofficial thing that I've been trying to encourage.
I didn't see that on your website anywhere.
It's in a footnote. No,
That's funny.
So,
but that's interesting. So let me just ask a question now. So then, okay, we vote on ideas. How many ideas do we vote on that we're going to move forward?
So, I guess probably about 8 or 9 usually.
Okay.
Just for example, hypothetically, if we had 50 to 60 people show up, maybe 20 pitch. Out of those 20, I'd say a little bit under 10, maybe around 10 at most.
Okay.
Or is the final number of ideas that end up getting
so then we
worked on.
have 10 ideas, and then the groups form the next day.
The groups form that night.
That night, okay.
Yes,
and then they
night.
decide if they're going to work through the night or if they're going to actually go home and
Correct.
and do what
Get
you
some
said.
sleep, right? And then we start again on Saturday morning at 9 o'clock. We have breakfast, and then the teams just start building their ideas. That's when they start going through the business model canvas. They're starting to validate, some of their value propositions, their customer segments. They're trying to figure out if they can get outside and talk to some people that are either nearby, or maybe they might drive to. We had a team drive to Christiana Mall, and they had an online virtual dressing room idea called ThreadNet, and so they wanted to go to the mall and talk to people to see if this
they would try it.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
interesting.
So and there was all kinds of different interviews and hypothesis and experimenting that went on over the course of the weekend. So then Saturday night, we encourage them to work until around 10 or 11. But some teams, the pressure's starting to get turned on a little bit higher at this point.
Because
so
they know they're going to have to be prepared.
Yeah, exactly. So some of them, I think, will end up working a little bit longer on Saturday night. And then Sunday, again, we start at 9 a.m. And then there's what they call a gut check, I think around 2 o'clock, where you just start kind of evaluating where you are, see if there's any final call for we need this or we don't have that. And I also want to just, emphasize one thing, and I'm sure this is obvious because of, the way you've seen us interact in the studio last time with Brad and Zach and with these guys. I mean, we are all really, a close group of friends.
Yeah.
And so if a team needs something, they're very likely to say, hey, Steve, I'm having trouble with this code. Can you help? Steve's not going to say, well, no, because you're not on my team.
Yeah, right.
Steve's going to go, oh, yeah, hold on. I can do this real quickly.
Right.
So there's a lot of cross collaboration that's going
great.
on
Excellent.
between all the teams.
So while there's a competition, but there's still
So it is a
that
competition,
camaraderie.
but at the same time, there's camaraderie because we want to show that Wilmington, the community in
has
Delaware.
the bright ideas, and we can make them come to fruition.
Exactly.
That's wonderful. So what kind of materials do you provide? Because you're talking about the business model and the, the various value proposition and all of that. Are you providing? I'm assuming that some people are coming and someone on the team really has this knowledge base already. But what are you providing that helps them walk through that process?
So what we do is we get. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the business model canvas, but it's sort of like this big chart that has 9 different blocks on it. And, it's a very popular concept in a way to organize how you're thinking about the different aspects of your startup. So startups use this, and usually doing the business model canvas is something that companies will do, for years and years and years. And there's different versions of it, and your first version of your canvas looks very, very different than the last version. But for this weekend, we give you big versions of the business model canvas, and then inside,
give them an idea of some of the components, just so that anyone can Google. They can Google business for those that are not familiar.
So your value proposition, for example, your customer segments, your cost structure, your sources of revenue. What are your key activities? What are your key resources? Who are your partnerships? What are your channels of distribution? How do you keep and grow customers in your customer relationship segment? And so the good thing about the canvas is that under the headings, they have little questions that you need to be asking.
Right.
So
it kind of walks you through the.
You can sort of treat it like a checklist of what I need to be thinking about in each block. Now, obviously, you cannot spend you could spend the whole weekend doing just that.
4 days on that.
So you really have to kind of just do a bare bones, focus and get out of that segment, go to the next one, and then obviously you're going to revisit it and return to it.
Well, what's good about that is you're not doing it by yourself. Most
Correct.
entrepreneurs are up until 3 a.m. trying to figure these things out on their own. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I would say it's the exception rather than the rule that a good idea did not hit me at 3 in the morning. So.
That's because you didn't have enough coffee or you hadn't taken a shower yet. Just kidding. But all right, so now we're at Saturday night, Sunday morning.
Sunday morning, and then gut check around. I think it's around 2 o'clock, and then I think it's pencils down around 3. And then right about 3 o'clock on Sunday, you are at the point where you kind of need to start getting your pitch together if you haven't already done that. And the pitches are only 5 minutes long, so every team has 5 minutes to present, what their MVP is, and the MVP stands for minimum viable product, or your prototype.
Okay.
And so you're kind of getting that pitched together, and then at 4:00 we have dinner, and then 5:00 judging starts.
Okay.
Or presentation start, and then
presentation.
Judging, right.
So there would be 10, let's just say 10 presentations, and then you have the judges. What are the judges looking for?
They're looking for actually, they want to know, did you validate your idea? Did you go through your business model canvas? That's one of the biggest parts of it. And it's a component that shouldn't be lost on the participants because, it is about building something and building something that, hopefully works and has some functionality. But it's also about testing, is there any interest in the market for something like this? Because eventually,
the potential for success.
If you're talking to an investor, that's what they want to know, obviously.
Exactly.
And so that's one of the big things they look at. The other thing they look at is, is your demo actually, a working demo? And because of the level of talent we had in the room last time, we were very fortunate. I think 8 out of our 9 prototypes were actually functional demos, which was really impressive. Because a lot of times these are photoshopped together. At other weekends I've seen, they don't really work. They kind of
bits and pieces
gloss
of it,
over but this time, so that is your demo working. And does it solve a unique idea? Is it a problem or need in the general population? Does it resonate? Can we really all look at that idea and say, I've had that problem, and I would love if something like this existed and we're out there. So it's a combination of factors, and I think it goes a little bit more deeper than that. But generally speaking, that's kind of what they look for. And they also, I think, want to see, it is only one weekend, but what are the team members like? Do they appear to be like a
cohesive group of people,
right.
Or was there one or two leaders, kind of running the whole thing?
Exactly.
I have a question, Steve. So when it came to presenting, and I would like to ask Adam too. We need to get you close to the mic. Can you guys just give your opinion? But how nerve-wracking was it to get to the point where you were being judged?
Well, my role as the technical guy was obviously to make sure that the app that we built actually functioned properly, or at least enough to get us through our presentation. So for me, it was everything was more of a logistics issue. I actually didn't really concern myself too much with the business end of things, because we had some extremely capable people like Adam and Pam, and there was, oh man, can't forget Andrew, and there was another guy too, Don. Thank you.
Okay.
We had a few people, and everybody was extremely enthusiastic, but also understood the business model end of things to the point where I, as a technical person, didn't need to concern myself whether these guys were.
You did your part. You handled your
did
piece.
my part.
Yeah, I think as Steve had mentioned, that there's several people that were on our team that have pitched before, don't have an issue with speaking in public. But I think what was most important is the Pam Brown, who's actually from Washington D.C., who came up to Wilmington for the weekend to participate. It was kind of her idea that we kind of built out. So we thought it was important for her to kind of have that pain point of, I'm a young lady with kids in Washington, D.C., and I work a full-time job. I help my husband run a business on the side. I had this pain point of trying to find out things to do with my kids. So having that person that is highly involved.
Right, a personal need for the same service.
Exactly. So she was able to paint the pain point, and then present what the solution was, which is, ultimately, the best way of kind of pitching things.
That's great. That sounds like so much fun. So, Mona, let me ask, in terms of what you'd like our listeners to do at this point, what is it that you'd like to get across to the listening audience?
I think the most important takeaway from everything that's been said here is that, if you've ever thought or had an idea and just sort of not just don't know where to start, but kind of are doubting whether or not you have it in you, this is a really great way for you to prove to yourself that, yes, you do. There are people that come to these startup weekends that have never done anything like this before, and they've come out with a team that actually, cares and really, really wants to work on something with them. And that what a great benefit to go from having nothing to on Sunday having a website that works, that actually is, trying to communicate the idea that you've had sitting around in your head for sometimes years. I think that's the biggest takeaway, is encouraging you that, you do have what it takes to be an entrepreneur, and everybody has an idea. everybody has an idea about something that could either make people's lives easier or make the world a better place. And this is a really great forum to be able to, test it out and see if that's actually a viable thing.
That's great. We're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come right back with our guests, and we're going to have them give us a little bit more details on some of the other activities that take place, if they can, through our Startup Weekend, and how you guys can perhaps participate and maybe be one of the lucky winners, right? All right. We'll be right back.
Welcome to Wilmington, Delaware. At Preservation Initiatives, we bring beautiful lofts to you. The recently renovated lofts at 400 Market Street are a must-see, a part of Registered National Historic District. Featuring spacious floor plans, custom glass windows, solid surface countertops, stainless steel appliances, custom lighting, wood flooring, large closets, pocket doors, sunny interiors, high ceilings plus beautifully detailed trim molding. Enjoy the sights, sounds, and tastes of Market Street. Just a short walk from the Wilmington riverfront, featuring family-friendly places to enjoy, with plenty of restaurants, entertainment, and other small-town conveniences. Wilmington, Delaware, in the middle of it all. Reserve today. Preservation Initiatives. Urban revitalization through historic preservation.
Preservation Initiatives is a wonderful, wonderful gem that we have here in the city of Wilmington. Don McGinley, its founder, has been developing historic properties since 1979. He's had properties in Boston, Miami, Philly, and now Wilmington. If you want to contact Preservation Initiatives in reference to any of the residential or commercial properties, please call them at 302-543-7565. That's 302-543-7565.
You're listening to WFAI 1510 AM. Welcome back to this week's edition of Evolution Strategies, Business Sustainability and Growth Simplified. If you're just joining us, get your pen and paper ready for more free advice from Carolyn Lighty and her guests.
Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. I'm Carolyn Lighty, your host of Evolution Strategies. Today we're talking about the Global Startup Battle, and we have guests in the studio, Mona Parikh, who is the Managing Director for Startup Delaware, and she's brought with us two participants from the event that took place back in May. So this is the fourth year for the event, right, Mona?
That's correct.
Okay. And we have in the studio Adam and Steve. Now, both of you guys, you actually work with other companies. How has what you learned as being a participant in the battle helped you perhaps in your positions today?
I think
that's Adam.
Yes, this is Adam. I think one of the big things that you learned is even if you have an idea working with a company, that validation is really big. You may have an idea and you want to implement it, but without having some feedback from your customers to ensure that your efforts don't go wasted, that you want to validate your ideas as much as possible before investing time and money into them. So I think the whole validation thing is really big.
It's funny, that leads into, if you had, if we could create, even amongst ourselves here today, a top 5 things as an entrepreneur that you should do. What is it that I need to have in order to become a successful entrepreneur? What might be some of the things that you would recommend?
I guess one of the big things is you can't read enough. I think that, if you have a lot of background pertaining to what it takes in order to get something launched or to back up or validate your idea, there's always great information out there to be gobbled up. Steve probably has a couple other things from a development side, specifically of, building a great team, making sure that, each one of us is different, and we bring something new and something different to the table. So kind of making that team, one, cohesive, but also being able to get those talents and put them in to function or put them to purpose is a big thing as well.
It's interesting. So the first one that we're leaving our audience with is you can't read enough. You have to study. You have to learn. The internet certainly makes that easy. I mean, YouTube, you can go on there and learn how to do just about anything. You probably could build your own car or your own home just by watching a YouTube video. Okay, I'm just joking. And then building a great team. I think that's really good. A lot of times entrepreneurs, and not just entrepreneurs, but I think a lot of folks in management, you get promoted up the ladder and you're so used to doing that sometimes you forget to delegate and you forget that it's important to build a team of people. You don't have to know everything. You don't have to be an expert, and you cannot possibly be an expert in everything. But if you build the right team, then you move forward together and you're very successful.
Yeah, I think another good thing to add to the list is don't be too attached to your idea, because ideas are a really good starting point, but at the end of the day, and I say this to my students at University of Delaware in the Intro to Entrepreneurship class I teach, treat your idea like an experiment. It's a hypothesis that you're testing. And when you are doing the customer validation and the customer interview process, the validation that Adam's talking about, if your idea doesn't change, then you're not doing it correctly. Your idea should change. Your idea has to change.
That makes sense, because again, your customer is going to drive the success of what it is that you're selling.
Sure, and there's no way that you can know what your customer thinks. You actually have to go out there and ask questions and talk to people.
And it changes, so therefore
Absolutely.
You have to be ready to make those changes. Go ahead, Steve.
Well, I was going to add that, plus you can walk into an event like this with an assumption about your idea that is completely false. I've done that twice now. And
way to be humble. That's good.
This kind of event, humility is obviously actually very important, because
Yes.
if I did the startup weekend in a much bigger. I did one in Philadelphia where the initial night, there were more than 200 people there.
Wow.
And the second
We'll
day,
get there.
that number got divided, and half of those people didn't come the second day because they wanted their ideas to make it to this stage. That, interestingly enough, did not happen at all here in Delaware. Everybody stayed the whole week. I mean, I can't think of anybody that didn't make it the whole.
Yeah, I mean, I think the number of people who didn't want to stay around for the whole weekend and just came for Friday night may have been maybe
maybe one or two people.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which to me is awesome, because that means everybody was there, not only to pitch an idea, but also to participate
help,
in this.
To learn,
to help.
to be a part of something instead of being a dictator.
Right.
Those types of folks that came. Those other half the 100 was it 100?
Yeah, I would say half the crowd.
And that's the thing, if you do show up to one of these things and you have this great idea and you get up there and you really you're working and talking to yourself to have the confidence to do it, and then they don't pick your idea. That doesn't mean you should go home. Because the value of participating on a team and being part of something that's building a product by Sunday, going through that experience is only going to help you decide whether or not, do I really think I have what it takes to be able to do this?
Well, it brings up other questions. I mean, you cannot, like I just said, you cannot possibly know everything. And if this is your first time becoming an entrepreneur, I don't care if it's your 10th time actually becoming an entrepreneur, if you haven't been exceedingly successful, then maybe there's something else that you did not know, and maybe there's somebody else that can help you with that.
And a lot of people don't, I mean, I need to be careful how I say that. A lot of people that, we end up talking to, even through Started Up Delaware, that say, I have an idea and I think it's great, and here are all the reasons why I think it's great. If they're not willing to actually talk to customers, if they're not willing to actually get out there and see what people think, or to build something small and put it in the hands of potential customers and see how they use it.
Right.
And then see how, that feedback will then change your idea and change, how you're building it. Maybe you thought that women from the age of 35 to 45 were going to use it, but really you found that guys from the age of 16 to 21 end up using it. So you can't, you need to figure that out.
It's a great place to test your idea.
That's right.
It is a wonderful place to test your idea. I have consulted with different companies or different wannabe entrepreneurs who would say, well, if I build it, they will come.
And that's
and how many of them would you like me to tell me of the ones that I've said, listen, if you don't have at least $2 million, this is not going to fly. Well, if I open the doors, then my revenue will pay for everything. No, that's not how it works.
It's a really dangerous way of looking at entrepreneurship. And I'm not to say that strategy has never worked before.
Exactly, but overall.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, basically, when you're talking lean and when you're really trying to figure out the best way to do this, the saying goes, build, measure, learn. So you build something, then you go out and you test it, and then you take the results from those tests, and you learn, and you decide whether to continue or whether you actually have to pivot and maybe go down a different path.
That's great. Steve, were you going to say something? I saw you were leaning over there.
I was just going to comment that the if you build it, they will come only works in Hollywood. That's
You are absolutely
coming from a developer, yeah.
That is so funny. So we have don't assume. That's what you were saying, Steve, in terms of understanding that there's still value, even though your idea did not get picked and you didn't move forward with it. There is value in being a part of the event.
Yeah, well, with the app that we ended up building, I was able to cannibalize parts of my idea and work it into the app that we built. So it's not like, it's not a lose-lose if your idea isn't picked. You can still take pieces of your idea and incorporate it elsewhere to see and still test those assumptions that you had initially based on how your idea played out with the other app that you were part of. So it's not like you walk in there and everything that you hoped and dreamed is gone. You still can push your assumptions.
Again, the beauty of working on a team. One of the things that I wanted to also talk about was what happens after. Like, for instance, the app that you built, did it just kind of go away? What are the success stories that have come out of this type of an event, 54 hours, and then what happened later?
The application that we built, What's Around, we actually, everyone on our team agreed that we wanted to continue working on it. I think after about 3 to 4 months, we were meeting on a weekly or bi-weekly basis, that obviously still having to support our families, that we had other focuses at that time, and then we kind of tabled it for a while to go ahead and take care of what we need to, and then that way when everyone was free we could come back and circle back around to continue to pursue it. But I think it's certainly something that's viable, and I definitely trying to get back out into the market to validate even more, to make sure that we're on the right the pathway is what we're planning on doing.
That's perfect. So, Mona, what were some of the other ideas that came out of that 54 hours?
So, one of the ideas actually that Brad had worked on, Brad Wasson, he had him on the show. Brad worked on an idea called Hood Hero, and basically what the idea was is it would allow people, citizens, to report anonymously, crime happening in the state of Delaware, and actually, NPR picked the story up. And actually had featured them to talk about this, And Brad's idea wasn't one of the top 3 that got selected as a winner, but they actually carved out a special category for his. And the other person who worked on this was Keith Elliott. He's an extremely talented iOS developer, and he works at Barclay, and Keith and Brad really built a funcking prototype.
Isn't he one of your coaches? Or
Keith is one of our organizers. That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and interestingly, they carved out this special honorable mention category because when Brad made his presentation, when he demoed his prototype and showed everyone how the app worked, they said, well, how do you plan to make money? And Brad said, I don't want to make money. Like, this is my gift to the community. I live in Wilmington. I love Wilmington. I want Wilmington to be safer. And that resonated. It's like what I was talking about earlier, an app that makes the world a better place. Yeah. So the judge, it really resonated with the judges so much that they were like, you know what? You're not one of the top 3, but
we really like
this is something we need to recognize. Wow. And interestingly, that was the one that got featured on NPR. So Hood Hero was one of them. Yeah. Another app that came from the weekend was called Bailbird. They were actually the people who won, and their team was John Kirk and Rick Pietro, and then I unfortunately don't know the name of their third teammate. I can't remember his name, but he was their developer, their architect, and their idea was actually crowdfunding bail, and
wow.
Yeah, and the reason it won, when they announced the winner, not only was Bailbird able to validate, they actually found a law firm that was wanted to advertise on their site once it got up and running.
Wow.
They already had a paying customer. I mean, not just advertise, but they actually wanted to use this because I guess some of the issues that come up, when people are trying to raise bail are, where does the money come from?
Yeah.
So providing a platform where friends and family can actually
that's interesting.
Can do this. Yeah. And so I know that they actually ran into some complications with launching it after startup weekend. But it's still there. They still have some ideas on which direction they want to take it. But right now, Rick and John are really focused on their other startup, which is Muni LLC. They're doing touchscreen technology, for, I guess, almost organizations who want to virtually manage projects. And so they built a touch screen where you can actually move things from a task list to another task list, and it syncs in real time with another virtual location across the country. So they're much more focused on that right now, which is fine. I mean, we know them. They're in the coin loft. And so, we see their struggle every day. And, when they said they didn't want to work on Bailbird anymore, it was a little like, oh, that's too bad because, but right now I think it makes more sense for them to focus on the other thing. Yeah. So Bailbird was another one. And then Grad Hub was a team of students who came from Drexel who actually wanted, they built a platform for college students to buy and sell textbooks.
Okay.
And I know Grad Hub, they did their beta testing. They may have launched that, I believe. And we have a Facebook page for all the participants where we kind of keep in touch.
Oh, that's great. That's wonderful. Yeah.
So when they were doing beta, they said, hey, can you guys please help us out and fill out the survey and then tell us what you think. And when Bailbird needed to raise a little bit of money, to launch, I guess, phase 1 of whatever they were doing, they posted on our Facebook page too,
right.
So it's
That's wonderful.
Yeah,
that is really terrific. So we've had some successes already.
Right.
We know it works. We know it's exciting. We know it's a lot of work, but it's you're taking away so much from the experience.
Yeah, and 54 hours, it's not a lot of time, and so there does need to be a commitment to follow through if you and your team really think you want to build this idea out and keep working together. But it is such a great way to kickstart that process, because otherwise, finding a team and forming a team and finding your co-founder, all that stuff can take months or even years, and that alone can be the reason your idea doesn't launch because you don't know where to find these people.
Yeah. So the resources, and that can also lead into the financial resources, of course, to fund, like from VC or angel funds to be able to do that. Right. Is there any resource that you're able to refer them to when it comes to that kind of resource, or do they kind of have to deal with that on their own?
So that's sort of where Startup Delaware, I think, comes in. What we want to do is to take some of these startups and then really give them everything else they need, if they are serious about working on a project like this. Co-funding or co-working through the Coin Loft, we'll give them a desk and a place to work. And eventually, we hope to be able to provide them with some seed money so they can
at least get certain parts of the phases launched.
So we see, Startup Weekend and Startup Delaware really going hand in hand. And long term, I feel like this is a great way to get entrepreneurs and aspiring entrepreneurs in the room to show them what resources we have to offer and support and really help them.
Okay.
And
Adam, you were going to say?
Yeah, and I think from a perspective of what you get out of a Startup Weekend, even if you don't find someone to invest in your company, there's coaches there's judges there that lend their time from an office hour standpoint to give you advice of how do you get to the next level, in order for you to be successful in, reaching the people that are really interested in investing in that type of product.
Well, you would be hard-pressed to find these folks anywhere else. It would take you an awful long time. They're all in one room, one place. We're going to be ending the show shortly. I want you to give some contact information and then the special discount code that you put together.
Sure. Well, if you have any questions about anything you've heard about today, you can always email us at startedupde@gmail.com. Our website for Startup Weekend is delaware.startupweekend.org. And when you register, if you enter the code all caps WFAI, that will give you a $25 discount for the event.
Well, thank you so much. We appreciate your time. Both of you, all of you, actually. I'd like to have you come back at some point to talk a little bit more about some of the other things you do. I do a lot of conversations around social media and that whole thing, and I want people to really understand the ins and outs of that as well.
Sure. Maybe afterwards we can even come on with some of the winning teams. And
that would be perfect.
Tell you about what
Wonderful.
happened.
Well, wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us today on Evolution Strategies, and we look forward to seeing all of you next week. Have a great